Okay. Okay. So hi everyone, this is Neetal, and today we are going to learn about selectors in UiPath. Um, so okay, let me. Sorry, my slides are a little distorted. So
No
what
worries.
top?
Now, Neetal, we cannot hear you. Okay, you can start, Neetal.
Okay, then we are going to learn about fine tuning, adding wildcards, using repair function, using variables in selector. Then there are like different approaches in which you can like fine tune selectors. Some of them being anchor based approach, relative selector, visual tree hierarchy, how to find children, and some practice exercises. So let's begin. So first is like what are selectors, and we are going to learn about the structure of selectors here. So by definition in UiPath Academy, it says that a selector is basically an XML fragment that is used to store the attributes of GUI element and its parents. So I just made it a little simpler for us to understand. So basically, selector is a property of UiPath which enables us to interact with any graphic user interface by properly locating the path of the UI element of our interest. So let me give you an example. Just going to put the screen here. Okay. So okay, this is taking a little time. Okay, now suppose we are having this application, right? Like we can have different type of applications that we would want to interact with, or any activity that we want to interact with. So in our human body we have eyes, right? By eyes we can look at a particular screen, and we can look at like different tabs. Then you know we can click on different buttons, select the radio buttons, but obviously UiPath doesn't know what you actually want to select or what activity you want to perform. So we can select different activities in the UiPath Studio. And if those activities want to interact with any graphical interface, be it a Windows application or an internet-based application or any website, all you got to do is you need to send this activity because it needs to interact with the graphic user interface. It uses the property in the UiPath, which is called selectors, by which uh, helps that activity to identify the element that you're interested in to perform any operation on. So what these activities do, for example, we have this activity, mouse click activity, right? So this mouse click activity you select from the activities panel here. Suppose this click activity is what you select. Let me see if it has classic. Okay, so I use this activity here, like mouse click activity. And suppose I want to select this cache and fields from my CRM app. So what I'm going to, there are different ways in which you can, navigate to the selectors. So one of them being like these three bars that you see on the activity. So let me drag and drop here and show you the same thing. So it says indicate on the screen. So I will open my app here and I can like locate to this cache and app. So there are these three bars by which you can like, you know, uh, edit your selector, or you can like open UI Explorer. You can use that and select your editor, or you can edit your editor. And the other one is in the properties panel. So this is your properties panel. You will go and click into like click target, and then there is this feature here, selector, and then you can click on these three little dots here, and then you can open the selector. So this is like a small version of selector, wherein you have the feature of like editing the attributes and editing the selector. So this is the main selector, which would actually help you identify the uh, selector like of your interest, or the element of your interest, in which in our case, which is like this cache in field here. And then this is the major version, like if you open this UI Explorer, it must have can you can you, okay. So the first element here that you see is like WND. This means you're interacting with Windows application. Suppose you were interacting with any browser-based activity or any internet-based, uh, URL that you were clicking. If you were to click, then here the editor would have something as HTML. Then if you were to select any web-based controls like a button on internet or so, you would have something which is like web control. So those are like the different elements that you can see in the selector. Now these the ones that are highlighted in red, these are all the attributes which will help you select like what application it is that you're interacting with, what are the different containers that you're having, in order for you to reach out to your final destined element of your interest. So there are basically two parts of the selector. The one here, this window, which is called the element, which is basically the like Windows application or HTML or internet based application or any Java based application. So this tells you what kind of application it is, and all the attributes are the one that basically show you what kind of like what are the different attributes that would help you reach out to your final element of interest. So those are the ones that we learned about. So that's what I have put in my example. Like this Windows HTML control Java, these are basically element types, and app control name, etc. Those are basically the identifiers that help you reach the final element of your interest. And the value that you see right in the commas, these are the actual values of those attributes that we are interested in. So as you can see one thing, so this selector, see these are in quotes. If I were to copy this, so this, as you can see, the selector is inside the double quotes. So basically the format, the data structure for them is string. So you can put any selector, you can copy it, put it in any other activity in terms of string, or even if you were to store tables, you can use string as data type for them. And the example I just now showed you. So this is the one that I just now covered. You can see like edit attributes there, wherein you can go and select, customize the attributes that you're interested in. And then we went to the edit selectors, in which we saw like, what kind of application it is, like what is the element, and what are the different attributes and what are those values. And then we covered the UI Explorer, the main part of it, wherein you can customize your selectors, right? So there are different parts of it. Let me go into it in detail. So one is this part that you can see is in the, like you can see your selectors in the visual tree format. Those are the different format. Then there is Property Explorer, in which you can have a deep dive into your selectors. You can customize, you can see some of the properties which are not viewable over here on different screens. You can see like some uh, more properties in the Property Explorer, and I'm going to cover that more in details, just giving you an overview here. Then in the bottom, we can see the target element, the element that you have clicked for. In our example, we clicked on that cache in property. So that is So that appears over here in this target element. Then we have selector editor, in which you can see your attributes like in the checkboxes format. And then in the XML format, you have all your selectors. Then we have a quick glance of the element that we have selected. In our case, we have selected your fashion. So you can see that in that quick selected item panel. Then let me go to the next one. Okay, how to locate the selectors in UiPath? We have seen that we can go through the UI panel. We can go through the properties panel, which I just now showed you, and you can click on these three little buttons here. Like you can go to target, properties, target, and then here you can locate the selector. Then through the three bars on the activity that we just now saw, you can click on either edit selector or you can open it in UI Explorer, which will give you the main panel for the selectors. Then let's go to the different properties of the UI Explorer. So I will show you over here. Okay. So as you can see, there are different buttons or features which are available here. The first one being validate, the other one being indicate element. Then there is something called as indicate anchor, repair, highlight, options. And this is the visual tree format of property explorer, select editor, and this is the main selector that goes in, and the selected item that we just now saw. Now let's go one by one about the functionalities, right? Now, what happens with this validate? Basically, there are four stages of this validate. The one that you see in green with the checkbox, that means whatever we have selected, whatever element we have selected, that is functioning properly. It's validated. It's coming true. So let me open my Neetal app again, and if I were to validate it, then what happens? Sorry, the uh, so I'm going to do indicate element, and then I'm going to do cache in, and then you can see it is validating. So when it was validating, you could see that it was coming in gray color with the circle thing, like like the refresh button kind of thing. That means it was trying to identify the element, and that element was being validated, so it was coming in that green color. um, Sorry. So yeah, so as you were seeing, that selector was being validated. So it was coming in green color quickly, and then it was having this refresh kind of thing, means the selector was being validated. And because the selector is valid, so you could see that in green color, and it shows as like valid selector. Now, if our selector was invalid, it would give us a cross with the red color background, which means that our selector is invalid. And then if we modify the selector, then it would give us this, yellow orange color background with this question mark. That means select it needs to revalidate our selector. So let me go and show you what we will do. Um, so let's see what if our validator fails. So I will change the control name to something. Okay, I'll just manipulate it or something. And now, so see, this comes in the here you can see the validation state has changed, right? It comes with the question mark. That means our selector has been modified, and it needs to revalidate, right? Now let me try to indicate this again in our, sorry, it was on my other screen. So let me try to revalidate this. It is showing. Okay, because I indicated it back again, and it has changed the control name to the indicated element, so it became green again. But if I were to change or tweak it, or select some other element with the control name being changed, or if I were to have some ID and then it was coming as like something improper, then your this thing, like your validate would go as like cross. That means it is invalidated. You cannot select the same element that you had selected before. um, so those are the different stages that we covered. Then okay, let's go to the visual tree. So in visual tree pattern, basically you can see, um, these are basically, like in, I think it's coded in like VB.NET or C Sharp, because I selected C Sharp. So these are basically the forms or the containers which help you go to your main element, and I'm going to show you. These basically represents everything which is there on the screen or on the app that you're interacting with. Meaning in this form teller, the way this form was designed was like, this is the main form. This form, okay, I'll show you. I can see the PPT. So this is basically your main form. So imagine this as like being one container, this entire app. And then this as a small little fragment from this date time till the end in the gray color. This as a second container, like how you do your, HTML designing or your CSS thing, like it's based on that container concept. So this is the main container. Then there is this second container which is grayed out. Then there is this third container in which basically you're having all these deposit transactions till the end. And this is where your element is located, this transaction. Suppose I were to click on the transaction ID, then this is the container in which your transaction ID is located. So all these forms here basically represent the different containers that you're having. Or if you were to go from here, see, this is your root node. In XML we have this concept of like root node. Root node is the main node that tells you what application it is. In our case here, it is this any teller demo app, and the control name is like form any teller. And these are all the different child elements. Like it has what, it has the main panel, right? So this one is your main panel, this is your main container. Then there is this group deposit container, which is your this container, second container. Then you are going to this control name, deposit cash in. Suppose in our case here, this is cash in, so this is the element of our interest. So in hierarchical pattern, it is basically showing you your main container, your child container, and the element inside the child container that you're interested in. In our case, it is cache in here, right? So this is how it works. So I'll take you to visual tree, and then I'm going to show you. So this is what it is. So see here, it is like, this is the one, it is highlighted, meaning we must have selected uh, the cache inside of it. So, and then, so if you expand it a little bit, if I go in the properties, okay, so this one shows you in the visual format. Then we have indicate element, which we explored, which helps you like select the element on the screen. You can also indicate an anchor to it. Suppose there are times wherein, I'll show you in another example wherein your field is like moving across the screen, it is not stable. So you can like put this cache in label as an anchor, and then you can, which will help you identify the field, the editable field associated with it. So basically you see here, it is like this Windows form, this is like the main form, and it has something which is like static, editable, so and so. So generally all your labels are static fields. And then all your, like the button here shows that you're interacting with some button. And then your edit fields are basically your fields that can be editable, the fields where you're actually inputting your values to. um, so that is the visual tree there. Then edit anchor, as I said, it would help you locate, like tie this field to an anchor. In our case, it could be this cache in label, which would help you identify this cache in field properly. Then highlight is a very interesting concept because it helps you identify or highlight the field that you have just now selected. So see, it has highlighted in red the cache in field that we have selected. So okay, this was the one that we were interested in. It is not selecting any other label or any other field. So that's where we use the highlight concept. And then we have this options which helps you identify the framework. So the UI framework by by default is selected, but which will help you identify the UI element. In case your default framework, UI framework doesn't work, then you have other options like active accessibility and UI automation. So active accessibility is a framework given by Microsoft, which will help you identify the legacy applications, and UI automation is the one which will help you identify the current applications or the modern applications. But you use them to uniquely identify your UI element only in case where default is not working properly, or it, like your selectors are not stable if you're using the default UI framework or the UI. If it is not working, then only you will use like active accessibility or UI automation. But most of the time, your default framework is going to work. Okay. Then we spoke about this select editor. So here you can like pick and choose the elements that you want. And then your like your AA state here is like focusable. This class is basically the main class where your UI element of interest is located. And this one, as I told you, is the main tree, uh, which goes from like root to the child element to help you identify the uh, UI element of your interest. Okay, so properties. Let's go to properties. Properties, I already told you. Properties, I already explained you like the hierarchy, the way it works. Then framework we spoke about. Default framework is the one that we are using by default, and then active accessibility framework we just now spoke about. So let's explore it now. This active. Okay. So suppose if I were to change this option, now you can see here, like with the default framework, all your like root nodes and all your parent and child nodes are selected, right? And the like see like what you're having like the windows, like the element name here and all the different attributes name here. But if I go and then change it to say like active accessibility framework, and if I were to like indicate this element to, and then so see how your editor has changed here, right? You're still having like the main root node, which is your Windows app, like which is helping you identify the application that you're interacting with. But all your child elements, see the way like the structure has changed and it is all grayed out. And then you're having this editable text in the role. So the way it identifies the element is all changed when you like switch between different frameworks. So this is what I was trying to explain here. Like all your selected elements are different, they are unchecked, and that is used for Microsoft. That's the framework to access the legacy applications. Then UI automation, that is UI automation basically is the one I think that it's the same as the default application to support the newer apps. Then then I was just trying to explain like indicate element, edit anchor, which I just now explained you. So that is what I had covered. Now let's go into like there are different types of selectors. One is full selector, the one is partial selectors, and the third one is fuzzy selector. So let's go to this full selector. So what is this full selector all about? Now, so okay. So basically, it contains all the elements which will help you identify the UI element, including the top level window. So what do they mean by top level window? So you can see this Windows app and any teller demo control, so and so, which was your main root, right? All these root nodes and all the parent levels are there when you're using the full selector. We are going to see that in the demo. And it is basically generated by the basic recorder. It is recommended when you're like switching between multiple windows. So suppose you're interacting with three different applications. One is your web-based application, other one is your Windows-based application, and then you want to switch between different application. Your workflow is such that you want to switch between different application. So that's when you're using the full selector. So what is the difference between like the full selector and the partial selector, right? So full selector basically helps you, it gives you the entire path of that application from the root node till the child element of your interest. So it helps you uniquely identify that application. And if you're like interacting with just one single applications and you're not switching and you're doing some calculations or manipulations on just one single application, and you're interacting between with different controls of just like say one given application. Suppose you're just interacting with only this any teller app, right? Like you're doing withdrawal, clicking different buttons, you're doing different calculations, you're not interacting with any other application, then it is recommended that you use partial application. Because once you're doing the first time selecting, you have already given the root node, meaning your UiPath Studio knows that you're interacting with just this application, your root node, and everything is in place. The other controls are just they're having they share the same parent. So you don't have to tell them every time in the selector that, oh, I'm interacting with this button now, I'm interacting with this field now, because it already knows the application that you're interacting with. So it doesn't need to have those entire full path, right? But when you're switching between different application, it needs to know the entire full path of that application, so as to uniquely help you identify the element that you're interested in. So that's the difference between the full selector and the partial selector. So let's see one demo of full selector. Okay. So yeah, so in this full selector, I was just showing you this cache in. I think I'm going to go with the, or basically we can go to even any internet based app, and then you can see like here it is giving you from the root till the child element, because we are like interacting with this particular application.
Neetal, sorry to interrupt you. Just an update. We have like last 6 minutes in our meeting left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then okay, now so one more thing I wanted to tell you. In the full selector, we don't have any attached window, as you could see. So attached window basically helps you act as a shield, which will tell you that this is the application that you're interacting with. So this basically acts as a shield, right? Which will tell you that, okay, this is the application, this is the root node. So if you can see here, see this is attached application or attached window or attached browser will help you tell you, which will give you the uh, address of the root node. In your case, it is this Anytello demo app, and the control name is form Anytello, right? So once it has identified. Now you can play with the different controls inside this application. So I have used this attached window app, and then I was selecting different fields. So let's see the editor here, like how this editor is working. The same element, the cache in element only I selected. But see here, see this, the root node is like all grayed out, and it is selecting the controls here, like the child element of our interest, which is text deposit. And it is grayed out because we had already used that attached window, and it identified that this is the application we are interacting with. Now, if you select the different buttons, this all root node is grayed out because you're playing on just one single application. That is what I wanted to tell you about the partial selector. Then we have something which is called as like this fuzzy selector. So one more thing that I found interesting in this, 2021 version is like you don't have that basic recording and then that web recording feature. I mean, it's all integrated in something which is called as app or web recording. So once you use this recording to select something on your screen, then automatically, right? Let me show you. Like I use that web or app recording, and then once I was selecting like different elements, you get all the different selectors here. Like this selector that you see here basically will tell you like this is the, or this attach window selector here. So this is basically your full selector. I mean, it helps you identify the root node of it. And then this selector, this basically going to tell you the full path of it, of your application. Like you don't have that basic or the app recording here. Okay. Okay. So now we are going to talk about this fuzzy selector, right? So what's the so let me go to my site first. And so we understood what is full selector, we saw what is partial selector. Now let's talk about something as a fuzzy selector. So fuzzy selector, I have this demo that I'll be showing you, in which what we have to do is basically we go to this RPA Challenger website, which I'm going to quickly show you. This is the website that you can, enroll in. And what we have to do is, so I went to this website basically. Let me, okay. So here we have this invoice tracking thing, wherein they have put the IDs of the transaction and then the due date of those invoices, and then there is this Excel sheet which is associated with that particular invoice. So what I'm trying to do is, what I'm going to ask the user to tell me like what is the due date, right? So here you can see this due date is in this format 09, which I'm assuming is the date, and then this is month and this is the year, and you can see that these are the hyphens that are separating this date, month, and the year. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask user to input the due date in any format, and then what they have to do it after they select the due date, this invoice should be like clicked, and then this whatever is that PDF related to that invoice should open. So what happens, when do we use, right? When do we use like Fuzzy Selector? That's the question. So when you're interacting with any application, or when you have designed any application, and you're asking the user to interact with that application, and like sometimes user can be clumsy, right? Or they don't know, especially when it comes to fields like date, they don't know what date you need to what format you need to enter your date in. So there are different ways, and different countries they're using different format, right? Somebody using like month, year, month, date, and then year, and then they use different separators. Some countries use, like some people use backslash, somebody use hyphen to separate those fields. So there are different ways in which you can enter date, right? In case where like how you have seen in your um like there are different ways in which you enter the due date. So in regular expression we must have seen like there are different ways, but you still want to identify that particular field, you still want to identify that due date. That's when you use this fuzzy selector, meaning there is like little ambiguity, like there is a difference between the way the user is putting the input versus what is actually there on the screen. There's slight difference, but you still want that selector to be so stable to identify that particular field as it is. That's when you use this fuzzy selector. That's the concept. Now let me see if this works. Let me give you the demo. So basically here what I have done is I have created a sequence. I have asked the user to enter the date, right? The input date, because we are interested in selecting that due date. Then I attach this browser activity, and then I'm trying to get the attribute of that due date. Then we are clicking on that due date, and after that a PDF should come as it is. Okay, it should be downloaded. Now let me run this code and see how this works. Okay, so due date. So let me select this due date, and I'm going to close this. Oh, okay, then I'm going to give it in a different format. Say I see. So okay, so it's selected. So it downloaded the PDF with respect to this due date. Suppose I run my code again, and this time I select the 17 whatever date and see if it gives me the invoice related to that particular date or not. So we are going to run this again. And This time, let me do something like this and see if it works with no hyphens. Okay, so it opened you this 3.jpg, which was like associated with this. Let's see if this has opened the right one. Yeah, it opened the right one. So that's the fuzzy selector, meaning you're not exactly, you are making some changes or modifying the selector, the input data, the way you want to enter the input data, and you're still downloading the data that is of interest to you. So let me show how the selectors work behind the scenes for that. Okay, so we go here. So see, so then I attached the browser because I wanted to interact with this RPA Challenger website, right? That's the reason why I attached this. I used this attach window activity. Then I went inside and I've used this get attribute activity. I used this get attribute activity because I wanted to get the details or the attributes associated with this due date. Okay, let's see how that works. Okay, so I'm going to put it in the UI Explorer. Okay, now let me show you what is the challenging part here. See here, what we are doing is we are selecting this due date. Now that due date can be any random, right? It could be either on first row, it could be on the second row, third row, fourth row, it could be on any row where this due date of our interest that we are selecting, right? It could be on any of the rows on this page. And what we have to do is we are not clicking on this due date that we are selecting, like because this is non-clickable button. I'm not selecting here, but I'm selecting on invoice which is associated with this unique due date, and I'm clicking on a field which is on another tab or another column which is associated with this due date. So if I can say so, this row basically acts like your this like a unique key, but the for helping us select the invoice related to that row. So it is kind of, if I can say so, acting as a key to help us select the invoice. So we are not clicking on the due date that we are selecting. We are clicking on the invoice that is associated with that due date, which is a different entity altogether. So here we are trying to get all the attributes which are associated with due date. So basically we are trying to get the row number here, which is associated with this due date, because user can select due date on any of the rows, right? He can select it on first row, second row, whatever row. So what we are doing in by this get attribute is like we are trying to get the row number associated with that date, so that we can see where we have to pick this invoice from, or where we have to click on that button for the invoice associated with that due date. So that is what is happening over here in this selector. Okay. Now this is the selector window that came. So it had, okay, this doesn't, okay, let me go back again and then uh, copy this and show you how I have done, because I have modified this selector. So I'm going to copy it and put it somewhere else. Okay. Okay. Now what we have is like if I indicate the element on that screen. Okay. To, okay, this is the row that I have selected here. So if you see how the selector works. Hmm. I don't know, something happened to this. No, I'm lost. I don't know, like something, I'm not able to like go inside the selector for some reason. I'm not able to see the pop-up window that popped up because of that. Mm. Any idea part like why I'm not able to select this?
Select which element?
like I was able to I wanted to show them like I went to this website and selected this due date, but now this whole studio has frozen, so I'm not able to go and like go inside it. It's giving me that sound that you cannot select, but I'm not able to see like which window do I need to close. um
Okay, okay. Is our UI Explorer open?
oh,
No.
okay.
So you
Okay,
cannot.
I think
Yeah.
because the screen must have come here. Okay, sorry. Okay, because the screen popped up. Okay, sorry about that. It was on some other
Yeah.
screen. Okay, so as you can see before, okay, so I'm going to put the notepad here. As you were seeing before, this is the one, the selector I had modified that I just now copied. But you can see here, see in your web control, see this is HTML based application that we were interacting with, right? So so you can, as you can see, we have used this attached browser. So that attached browser eliminated the whole root node, right? That is why this root node is all grayed out here. If you can see like little like gray thing over here, but it has grayed out because it already knows what application you're interacting with, right? And then this is the web control because you're interacting with some fields on that HTML based app. So that's why you're getting all the web controls here, right? Now it has, now since I selected like column 3, and then so it is showing your column 3, right? um, because that's the field that we have interacted with. Now, let me again go back and show you what if I were to like select a different row. Suppose I were to select this one, right? Okay. Then let's see how our UI interacts. Okay. So see, now now since we interacted with a different row, here you have this table row property and it has become 5 now, and that column is still the third column. So our rows are changing dynamically, right? So as I was telling you, we need to uniquely identify the row of our interest. So and this row keeps on changing based on the date that the based on the date that we are inputting, right? So I have to make this somehow dynamic. So I have to use some dynamic selectors, or I have to like change this finite row to make sure that it matches with the date that we are trying to input here. So this is the row which needs to be variable based on the input that we are giving, right? And it's not a proper selector because our date keeps on changing. Like the input date could be either on the first row or it could be on the second, third, fourth, or whatever. So we need to make this dynamic. So I'll open my Explorer. It has opened here. It will take some time to load. Okay. So the long story short is like it is not helping me uniquely identify the date because this table row is now a static field. It is not helping us identify because date could be on any of the rows. So this one is not of interest to us. So we are going to remove that whole remove the whole table row because a date could be on anything on anywhere, and we are going to include this AA name because this is the one which is helping us identify the date. So we are going to include that. So since see, these are the ones, this is the panel from which I can customize and cherry pick the attributes that are of interest to me. So in our case here, this is this AA name which is of interest to us. Now I'm going to make this AA name dynamic because this is the name which I need to select from the user. So as you have seen, I have already selected what I have selected the I have given the choice, like I have used that input dialog. I'm asking the user to use that to give us that date, and that I'm storing in some variable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select here, press, I can either right click, right? And then I can choose the variable that we have selected from that variable panel. So in our case here, it is the input date. So I'm going to like select this and put OK. So see, this is the dynamic. This is the way the dynamic selector works, meaning I have chosen that input date which I had stored as a variable, right? Now there's some concept of uh, matching that you have learned in the regular expression. And I'm going to copy paste this thing here in the selector to show you. So this matching AA name, because this AA name is the property, is the date is the property that we have that we have chosen here. And matching meaning the regular expression that we have learned, that you are matching it on the date, right? A name is the field or the attribute which helps you identify the date. And I've selected that and put that as fuzzy. Fuzzy is like, okay, this is the field I can, play with, and I can put the input in any format, right? As we have seen before, it's not going to be exact format in which you were seeing it on the screen with the hyphens. So there is something called as fuzzy level, and that fuzzy level is applied on the AA name field. That is why colon AA name, right? And that fuzzy level we have selected as 0.3. Now we can go from like 0.1 all the way till 1. So like that means, like if the fuzzy level is 0.1, that means the date could be in any format. It could be as fuzzy or as incorrect, if I can use that word, as compared to the right format that we are using, meaning the one with the hyphens. But if I'm like going to go till like 0.9, that means it should match the data that we are entering. It should match as close to the date which is there on the screen. And the more we go on the lower side of the fuzzy level, meaning it should like kind of match a little bit with the format that we are having. Like there is, you can play around a lot if the fuzzy level is low. So that is the fuzzy level that we are talking about here. And this input date, we are doing it as a dynamic selector because this name should match with the date that we have given. It's not a static field, right? So from that, so this is the, okay, this column should be 3, right? Because on the third column there is date. So that is what, that is how we have saved the selector. All right, I can close this, and okay. And then we are trying to get the attribute of table row. So you can go to the drop down and then you can select what is the attribute that you want from there. So there are different inbuilt attributes that are compiled when you're like selecting this selector. So there are different types of them, like a name or whatever, but we are interested in that table row. Since the table row was not coming, like it was not automatically populated. So when I went to the selector here, as you can see, it was there in the property, like let me check in the UI Explorer. Okay, I'll show you. So in the properties, like in the selected field here, whatever was the name given for that table row, I used that name as it is, and then I had put it in that selector. So I'm just waiting for it to come. Yeah, I can. Okay, I don't know why this is not coming. Maybe it is taking time for it to come. Okay, so that table row, I just selected it from here, like just as it is, and that what I have put it in the get attribute, because that was not automatically getting populated for some reason. So I'm going to still use my, okay, and save it. Okay, so this is where I picked the table row from. And then let's go to the selector. So that's where you get your table row from. Now I stored it in the variable. I created one variable here and stored my result in the table row property. Then I'm clicking here and let's see how the selector is there. Okay, now what we have to do is, from the fourth column, we have to basically we have to basically click on that little button, right? Like this download button kind of thing. So I use the click property. And how do I identify this invoice downloadable button associated with this due date? So what I did was like this table row, we have stored that in this variable, right? Like table row as the variable where we have stored the value as we have seen previously. So I gave that variable name here in that table row property for it to uniquely identify that download button that we need to select. And that is how we have like selected the we have clicked on the downloadable button associated with the date that we are entering. And that is how that fuzzy selector code works. So the main, I think the main thing that we need to understand here is that is that we can like use the dynamic selectors, meaning whatever input date we are giving, we can add the variables, sign them here to uniquely identify the element that is of our interest. And then other thing here that we learned is basically we can use regular expressions, and then we can select the fuzzy level, like from 0.1 to like all the way to 1, or uh, like to select what is the exact level that we need to match in order to select that selector. So that's the main concept here. Okay. So now we will talk something now. As you can see, like the selectors that we are selecting, sometimes they cannot be like stable, right? Like or there could be different scenarios in which your selectors are changing, they become little dynamic, but you still want to identify the element that is of interest to you. So that's where we use this fine tuning. So what is fine tuning? Basically, it's a process of refining the selectors in order to have the workflow correctly executed in situation in which the generated selector is unreliable, it's either too specific or too sensitive with regards to the system changes. So let's go one by one. Like, what are the different scenarios in which we need to fine tune our selectors, right? So one is like dynamically generated selectors. The values of attribute change with each visit to the website. Okay, so let me go here to this website and see what they're talking about. Okay, so this RPA challenge website is where I went, and here you can see, right, this is the format. Here there is this role in the company, phone number, email, all the different details are there, right? Now once I click on suppose there's a selector which were to select the role in the company, and I click here. I'm going to give you the demo and show you. We'll look at that by an example. And if I were to submit the button and the next time and see what happens. Now this whole format has changed, right? It was somewhere over here. This role in the company was somewhere over here on the left hand side, but now it has become more like a linear document, and this role in the company has come below. So the whole location has changed. Now, what if you have coded and you have selected a selector, and then it is so something that I want to show you. Let me show you something. Uh, when we are selecting a selector, something interesting that is to be observed here is like that also selects the coordinates of it. Like these are the X and Y coordinates where your selector is present. Suppose I were to select that role in the company and it has chosen the position as like -545 or whatever. Next time we click on the submit button, or if you ask somebody else to like run your code and they're not able to find that role in the company located at this location, that means you will get validation error because it is not able to find it at that particular location which is there. That means your selector has become dynamic, like its position has changed. What do you do? And you still want to put your entry in that role in the company field. What do you do? So in those situations, we have to fine tune our selector by different approaches, which we are going to learn later. But that means your selector is unreliable, right? So you need to fine tune your selector because the position that you have selected earlier has changed. So that is one example. So you need to do something to make sure it identifies that role in the company wherever it is located on the screen. Okay, so that is one situation. The other one is like selector is too specific. So selectors are automatically generated with the name of the file. Okay, so suppose there is this file that you have selected and it has like a date on it, right? And or you have like some field that you have selected which has like some identifier associated with it, like 1 2 3 or whatever. And next time you go, that identifier changes, it becomes like 4 5 7 or whatever, but you're still interested in that field, and that selector is too specific, it is pointing to something else. So in that case you have to like fine tune your selector. What if the system changes? Suppose like you have an application that you have built in the QA region, right? Like we know we like migrate our code from the dev region to QA to prod region, and your application number say in QA was like version 3.0 whatever, and there are like some activities, you're migrating your code to production, and the version there becomes like 2.0, and you're doing some activity which is based on the version number of your application, and it is now the version number has changed, so it is not able to perform that activity because the version number of the code has changed. So what do you do in that case? So you need to fine tune your selector. Then so the selector with IDX I just now spoke about. The IDX is the index of the current element in the container with similar elements, and this might change if the new element appears in the same container. For example, the input field has this IDX as ABC, and now we cannot select the same field because at that location a new field came up, and the ID of that is like XYZ. So we need to fine tune. Okay. Now, there are different ways in which we can fine tune our selectors. So one of the way is like using wildcards. So I'm going to like give give a demo on that, and we can like easily understand what is wildcard. But that there are like two different things that we can use in the wildcard. One is like in the selectors we can use this thing asterisk symbol, and then we can replace like zero or more characters by using this asterisk. Then in the selector, we can use something as something which is question mark, which will help us replace exactly like one character in our selectors, right? Then we can use the repair functionality. So repair functionality you have seen here, right? This little this box here, we can use that box and repair our selectors. That is another way we can fine tune our selector. The third way is like using variables in the selectors. So as you have seen in that fuzzy selector demo, right? We have used the dynamic variables there because we wanted to select on that invoice which was related to that date. So we have tuned our selector because we wanted to select that invoice which was related to our date, right? And correlate to different elements, if I were to say, together. So we can use the variables in the selector. Now let's go to this functionality. Like what is wildcard? What is this wildcard? So basically this asterisk and this question marks are called as wildcards. Oh, and then let's see where we can use this wildcard thingy, right? So I'm going to give you a demo. Okay. So basically, I have created a notepad application, just a simple little application. Let me open that and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, 1 minute. I need to put it on that screen. Okay. Okay, so I've created this notepad-based application. Basically, I've created like different, files, notepad files, and I have named them as like yoga, whatever, and then date, month, and year. So 25th of May, so and so, whatever. Let's go inside it and see what we have. Yeah. So I just took some article, and this is the text: yoga is for whatever whatever. So my aim here is to replace this word yoga with like kung fu or something using our application, and let's see how it behaves. So so the point here is hmm, now so the part yeah. Okay, so as you can see here, we are having like different file names here. Like one file is 25th, one is 26th, 27th, whatever. So I'll tell you. Like suppose I open this file, right, the one of 25th, but and then the bot is able. And if I were to use the selectors and this file names comes in the selector as of the 25th file, but suppose I want to perform the same thing, right? Like I want to replace this file also has yoga or whatever mentioned, and I want to replace kung fu in this as well. Like I want to perform the same activity that I'm doing on the file which was named on the 25th of May. But I want now this date has changed to 26th, and I want to use the same function, but my selector would fail, right? Because this date of the file has changed, and if in my selector this date or this file name is coming as the key, which will help us select this file. So what I'll do is I'll change my selector, and in the selector I'm going to use the wildcard after two, like or I can use an asterisk in place of this 26. So what will happen is any date which will come in the month of May, like 05/2021, it will open that application and replace that word yoga with kung fu on those dates, whatever are the files on this month of May. Or if I use a selector, like if I use the in the selector, and if I use asterisk and give 2021, so whatever file names are there which are executed on the in 2021, it will work for all those files. So basically the point what they're trying to make is like you can use asterisk, and then you can customize the files that you want to open, or you can change your selectors. And so asterisk will help you replace zero or more characters. So if I put asterisk 2021, it will select all the files in 2021. And if I were to like place a single character, suppose I want to open the files which are there on like 25th or 26th, like anything after 20th, between 20th to 29. So I'm going to put like two, and then I'm going to put a question mark. So all these like 1 to 0, from 0 to 9, all these, it will open something from 20 to 29, right? I can do that because question mark will replace just one character. So let me open this file here and run my bot and see what happens. Okay. Hmm. Oh, there are different files which are open, so I think it's not able to identify which one. Okay, let me open. Yeah, so it has like changed like kung fu, like from yoga to kung fu in that file. So what I have done is I'll tell you in my selector what I have done.
Okay. So I think Neetal, this was very amazing topic on, like, you have tried to bring some of the best scenarios you could to explain each and every selector topic. I know that selector is something that will just go on if a person sits to explain and explore, but this session has really been very wonderful. I think even I learned some unexplored things within this, like the fuzzy selector that you showed with a proper use case. That was really amazing, and I think this complete recording will make it available to more people so that they can understand the very core basics, right from the control elements to the attributes and everything. So this was definitely a very amazing session, Nitin. Thank you for
Thank you.
taking all your efforts to make that presentation and having this quick workflows ready with the sites, and also it was really wonderful. Thank you for explaining the topic to everyone.
Thank you, Parth. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Anyone else would just give a quick feedback if you want to. You all can unmute yourself, I think. Yeah. Okay. So I think, yeah, someone is unmuted, I suppose. Yeah, on Edika.
Yeah, it was a nice section. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. So
Thank you.
thank you everyone
Yeah,
for
Neetal,
attending.
it was, yeah,
It's really amazing
Thank
session.
Thank you.
it was a very amazing session. I learned more about Selector. Thank you,
Mhm.
Neetal.
Thank you.
Thank you so much everyone for attending, and glad to have you, Nital, in the RP Rookies group. Thank you so much everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
It was my pleasure. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Nital.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.